Welcome, 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 ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters. It's that time. I've been telling you guys that she was coming. I've been telling you guys that I was going to get her, and she is here this evening. I'm going to limit how long we talk because she's doing some big things, and she took out time out of her schedule to grace us with her presence. None other than, and I've seen this all over the place, so I refer to you as the ad lib queen
Oh God,
herself, the one who loves you,
indeed.
Evangelist Lillian Lloyd.
Hey,
Uh,
hey,
thank,
hey.
thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Listen, I'm gonna say to the people first, we done had a powerful, good conversation even before we went live,
Oh yeah.
and we were talking some good stuff. But that phrase, the ad lib queen. Now I have my thought of where that special anointing, because you have to be anointed to attempt to do that in the spirit of excellence in which you do. But where did you get labeled that from? Who was the one who gave you that name?
My manager, the guy that was managing me, his name is Cornell Morris. Cornell was making creating a bio for me when I first joined New G. That was back in 2004. He was creating a bio for me, and he said, known affectionately in the industry as the ad lib queen. And I said, wait a minute, don't you think that's stretching it a little bit? Like, who calls me that? He's like, just shut up. You are the ad lib queen. I'm like, but I'm not known affectionately in the whole industry as that. He said, well, you will be. Trust me. You have a gift. And so I'm like, I don't know if I want to just start fluffing it too early in the game.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
and
listen.
so, but it caught on and that it just became a thing.
Well, listen. Everybody who I spoke to, musicians, singers, producers, songwriters, when I mentioned you,
Oh, wow.
their thing is the one who seems like she never runs out of words. And I said, I mean, if you listen, and the song that everybody always refers to is "One More Chance,"
Oh, sure.
and they're
Hmm.
like, I mean, first of all, the stamina that New G has to sing that song, because it's like, okay, who's going to quit first? Is it going to be the singers or is it going to be Lillian? Because, I mean, I can't imagine anyone else doing that song. The impact it had the first time I heard you sing that,
Wow.
um, it was ridiculous because
Mhm.
it didn't seem like it was just how some folks can sing because they're talented to do it.
Sure.
Then there's folks like yourself, who you have the gift is anointed, and it's what it is that you're called to do in this earth is to deliver the message of the good news of Jesus Christ through song. And I know it comes from a personal relationship.
Absolutely.
There is
Absolutely.
no way you can ad lib the way you do in gospel music and you not
Mhm.
be for real in relationship with Jesus Christ.
Sure. Absolutely. There is a there's an experience that goes with every song, and I don't even typically like to take a song if I can't relate to it,
Mm,
if I can't tell a story with it. I want to be able to paint a picture. And I always tell lead singers when they ask, you have to be able to, tell them the who, what, when, where, how, and now.
mm,
And if you can't answer those questions, then you're just up there being repetitious and saying the same things over and over again, and just, call and response, saying what the choir is saying,
yeah.
and you're not really getting a message across. There are times where the pastor will preach, or they won't, in other words, they won't stick around for the message. So it's my job to make sure they get a word, whether they stick around for the preacher or not.
Okay.
So that's what I always endeavor to do. In case somebody leaves early, they got a word
Hmm.
in the song. There's a message in the song, and that's always my endeavor. What can I say to give them this word, just in case they decide to leave before the preacher? What can I say that this word will carry them even when they're not in church?
Hmm.
Somebody that hasn't been to church, they sing my song in the clubs. So it's like, how can I get this message across to the person that's in the bar that's lip syncing? Drag queens lip sync to my songs in their pageants and balls and things like that in the clubs.
Wow.
And I actually went. I had an experience the other week. I was in Chicago, and a friend of mine took me to see the drag queen, one of the drag queens that performs, because several of them perform across the country.
Okay.
Perform One More Chance. They were God, several ones, and they win trophies and they make big money. I'm like, where's my cut? You know,
Right. Right.
big money. I mean, people were just throwing bills, $20 bills, $10, $500. I mean, just stacks of money, and they're just scooping it up, just like people throw money at dancers and
Yeah.
in clubs. But they get these big tips, lip syncing to these songs. But I went, and they told the queen that I was in the audience, and it was just a thing. She said, "You know what? I was going to close with Diana Ross, but we got we got Lillian Lloyd in the building. I think I want to close with One More Chance tonight." They started that song over 3 times. The crowd was just in hysterics.
Wow.
And so the last time around, I was just standing there in tears, watching as all of these church kids, because that's all that was at the club that night,
Yeah.
a bunch of church kids
Yeah.
and a bunch of choir babies. And they were standing around the stage singing the song, and it's sounding like a choir.
Wow.
And I got the mic, and I went up on she invited me up on stage, and I got the microphone and shared the love of Jesus Christ with everybody in the room, and just letting them know it doesn't matter who's rejected you and pushed you aside. Jesus said, "I will in no wise cast you out," and that He'll be with us always, even until the end of the world. And nobody can pluck you out of God's hand. You can jump out of His hands, but you can't. Nobody can pluck you out of God's hands. Nobody's rejection is powerful enough for them to change God's mind about you.
Yes.
And He said, "I would that none would perish." And so we're so quick to want to send people to hell and cast people into outer darkness, but we never consider the things that we've done that
Hmm.
are sometimes even worse than what we think somebody else is guilty of.
Yes.
So if we just embrace the grace and the love of Jesus Christ, we could it would cover a multitude of faults, and we could go a long way. We could
And,
go a
and,
long
and
way.
listen, let me explain this to the people. That title, that office, that place that she walks in, the anointing of evangelist, it's for real. We all know folks who come up with titles and positions and hats that they wear for the sound of it. But as you can hear, the word of God and the love of God, most importantly, is flowing through her and out of her.
Yes,
And I just want to commend you to be daring enough to really walk how Christ would walk.
absolutely,
People often say, if Jesus was alive today, and they start off questions like that, how would he be and where would he be at? And I think it would just be a modern day continuation of how his ministry was before he was murdered.
sure,
To the folks, like you said, who some people may have rejected and cast it out, and you're not good enough or whatever. I think it would be, in those places where he would congregate to show them his love is greater.
absolutely,
And I commend you for that, because not everybody's willing to go into the highways and the hedges.
absolutely.
Some folks want to stay in the street with the street lights on them, but you're saying you're the light. They don't want to go into darkness.
Hmm. Absolutely, absolutely, and that's where light is needed. Light is needed in dark places, and
Yes.
everybody's not going to come to your church, not right away.
Hmm.
Everybody's not going to just walk up to your door and come in just because it says Temple of Love or Tabernacle of Faith or House of God. They're not going to just walk right in.
Yes.
And some people are afraid to walk in because of the way they're looked at and the way they're treated, the way they're mishandled when they get in. But
Mm.
if we would all realize that we are all recipients of God's grace, and we are all in desperate need of His grace and desperate need of His mercy. I'm humbled to be in God's house. I was at a church Sunday, and the pastor said, you know, "I just want to let you know that some of our members um, suffer from mental illness. So if you notice anything, just not." I said, "Sweetheart, you don't have to give me any disclaimers. I love everybody.
Mhm.
And so if somebody runs up boogity 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 and grabs me and starts turning me in a circle, I can handle it. I'm not afraid. And I did not leave that church until I hugged only person I didn't get to hug, I think, was the drummer, because he was like in a cage and it
Yeah.
was too many things in the way for me to get back there to him. But I just blew him a kiss and he blew me a kiss from the drums. But
Hmm.
I made it my business to hug everybody in that room before I took my seat,
Wow.
because when you have a bunch of people that have been marginalized and that have been ostracized and pushed aside because of whatever situations they have going on in their lives, the one thing you don't want them to do is leave feeling unloved. You don't
Mm.
want every experience they've ever had with church to go back to the time where somebody called them out of their name over the pulpit, or said some slur, or said some hurtful thing
Right.
to them
Right.
out of turn. But I said, let this experience show you what real love feels like. This is what God's house should feel like.
Mm.
You should feel this love when you come to God's house. And so just there were tears and there were just warm hugs, and that is always what I want to bring. And it's really not a show. I really want you to feel that. And that's why when I come onto my broadcast, I say, hey, it's your girl, Miss Lillian, aka the queen, the one that loves you. I am indeed the one that loves you. Oh yes, I am. I'm the one that loves you. So when you go to bed at night, the Lord loves me and Lillian Lloyd loves me. She cares about me. She's concerned
Yes.
about my well-being. And when my followers get sick, when my followers have issues, I am praying for them. I am concerned about them. And I'm going to check, hey, what happened? I
Hmm.
want updates. And then they update with me when something goes on with me. They check in on me. So it's just we just keep the love going. And I don't get on there begging for money and all that crap, because that's what people love to do. They
Hmm.
love to do that. But it's not about, trying to milk anybody out of their money and their hard-earned wages. Love is free. Freely I've received it and freely I give what's been given to me. It's a gift. You don't have to
Wow.
pay for a gift.
Wow. So let me ask you this. We know that, what it is that you do in gospel music. There's none like you. But who were some of the influences musically that inspired, encouraged, motivated you to get to where you are now?
Wow. So somebody asked me the other day, who is the Mount Rushmore of
Okay.
gospel for me? And so I
Yeah.
said, well, definitely Thomas Whitfield,
Okay.
definitely James Cleveland,
Okay.
definitely Andre Crouch, the Hawkins, all the Hawkins.
Hmm.
Just this the whole Detroit sound. When you start talking about the Detroit sound, you got to mention Reverend Charles Craig, Voice of the Tabernacle, because we wouldn't know James Cleveland on the level that we know James Cleveland without the Voice of the Tabernacle,
Okay.
and Reverend Charles Craig and the Craig brothers, and so you have to factor all of those things in. And Reverend Charles Nix, that really rich, deep Detroit organ sound, like no other place has that sound
Yeah.
like Detroit has that sound. And so those are the things that motivated me. Those are the things that drove me. Those are the songs I lip synced to when I was a kid, and that's what just really made me. I think when I heard Thomas Whitfield's album, the Hallelujah Anyhow album, I
Okay.
spent a lot of time with, and I still spend a lot of time with that record. But and I still have the original vinyl that I had when I was a kid. I have it in here somewhere. It's in here. I have lots of vinyls. But the first time I heard Lydia Wright sing, I was
Mm.
just blown away, literally blown away at her voice. And that's the kind of sound I wanted to make. I wanted to make that sound. I wanted to make people feel the way she made me feel.
Okay.
When I heard Lynette Hawkins sing, I wanted to
Yes.
make people feel the way Lynette made me feel. And she is my favorite female vocalist. That's my, I don't like to say the word idol, but for
Yeah.
lack of a better term, that's my idol, Lynette Hawkins. So they're the ones that just really put that fire inside of me for gospel music.
Wow. And see,
Yeah.
I'm here in Detroit, and I've had the privilege to hear well, now Pastor Rudolph Stansfield.
Oh, absolutely. He's
So
definitely right up there as
yes.
well. Now Tiffany Cummins is my heartbeat with him. just vocals and just that feeling that you get. Like it's just the vibe is just so intense. You can't ignore it. It's not just the anointing, but there's just something that comes. Denise Morton, they have that voice that just pierces right through your soul, and it just you get that moment like oh
Yes.
it's exhilarating, you know.
Yes. And coming here, it was, you know, when I asked folks, you know, just musicians, it was people that just said you have to stop by Rudy's church,
Oh
uh,
yeah.
Pastor John Willis, Carolyn Cole.
Hmm.
And it was like, okay. And there were times that I was privileged to listen. I never played with Pastor Rudy Stansfield, but I heard him, and I'm sitting there saying, now I play organ and keys. I know the notes that's on the organ. He's hitting notes that
That ain't
I'm
up there.
where
Where are
are
you
they
finding
coming
these
from?
notes?
I'm like, where is this? And I mean, just smooth with it. Then with Carolyn Cole, it's a church that she plays for in Southfield, and the minister of music, he had to go out of town. He asked me to step in, and he was like, "Oh, you'll be playing with Carolyn," and I'm like, "Okay." And I had heard of her, but never met her. First of all, she was just so gracious, so sweet, and when I realized who she was, I was like, okay, I'm gonna turn this keyboard down she said, come on, baby, look, we just gonna go ahead and do this real easy. She was like, we just gonna rock. And when I tell you she was so encouraging, Pastor John Willis and so many others, and it's like the sound,
Oh
you
yeah.
know, the openness to pour into and to help, you know, inspire, you know, it's like no other place that I've been. These folks here, Detroit is different when it comes to
Absolutely.
gospel. You
Oh
know,
yeah.
I'm from Jersey. You know, I've been across the bridge to New York, and New York is its own place as well.
Oh yeah.
But it's
And that's
something.
another haven for good gospel music though.
Oh yes.
You start talking about Reverend Timothy Wright and
Oh,
Tribal Mass and Bishop Albert Jameson and of course Professor James Hall, Butch
listen,
Haywood. You start talking about institutional and
yes,
Benny Cummings and all those guys. It's like that's a
listen,
whole other world.
Bishop Figueroa
Oh
and,
yeah.
and them good folks over there,
Yeah.
Hezekiah Walker.
Oh, of
Um,
course.
is you know, Brooklyn church is different, you know, because they'll church you. Y'all can go to White Castle and then come back and they still
They
churching.
still at they're still
Um,
at it.
yeah, yeah. So but you know, this sound here, like you said, and I remember the first time hearing Special Gift by the Hawkins, and I was just like, it was everything. It was the backgrounds, it was the arranging, you know, and all of that. And it's phew, man, when you start talking about real iconic people, you know, as far as the movement of gospel and the staple that they made, um, we can see it in the DNA because listening to your music, there's nobody that I've heard that have heard your music, and the first thing they've said is, "I felt that." You
Mm.
know, everything you said, it was what they felt. And painting a picture, um, when you did the recording and you were sitting on the steps talking about being over on Cicero and
Yeah.
all of that and everything, the picture was very clearly painted.
Absolutely.
And the thing is, it came from a real place, you
Absolutely.
know, and I think that's the reason why when your name is referenced and people hear it, it's you leave people in awe.
I always want people to, I think we take a lot of things for granted.
Yes.
I'm not expecting any company, so there shouldn't be anyone knocking at my door.
Oh,
That's weird. Okay, we'll keep going.
okay.
Um, the Why would somebody be knocking at my door? That's weird. I live alone, so that's kind of unnerving for someone to be knocking at my door. Uh, what was I talking about? That startled me.
Just you know, the what you want people to feel
Oh
when you
yeah, I want people to feel um a connection. We take a lot of things for granted. That's where I was going with that. We take a lot of things for granted, and we we see homeless people on the street. We see drug addicts all the time, and we don't realize that we're just a paycheck or two away from being in their spot.
Yes.
We think that we're special because we have an education or we have a job or we have, oh, I'm job security, what they think is job security. And they don't
Yes.
realize that a series of events could take that and it could be a completely different situation in
Right.
just a matter of moments. My mother, back in June, my mother suffered a stroke
Wow. Sorry to hear that.
the day after my birthday. And so I was literally getting ready to go into sound check and was getting ready to go into sound check. And I get a phone call from my sister Julie. She says, we had to fly mom to Atlanta. She has a blood clot on her brain,
Wow.
and she's paralyzed on her left side. I was just with my mom 2 weeks prior to that, and she was fine. She was up walking around,
Yeah.
moving slow, but she was walking around. She's 87 years old, so she doesn't, she's not running any marathons, but she can still get around.
Yeah.
And sometimes with her little walking stick, sometimes without it. And now she is in bed at home in her hospital bed, completely incapacitated, and she can't move without the assistance of my sisters. They're caring for her. So stuff can change in a moment.
Yes.
You can go from being happy, healthy, enjoying your family to not knowing what day it is. And I had a similar situation last June. I was touring with my guitarist, and we did a show in San Antonio, Texas, and then I went to Florida the next day. Before I left San Antonio, I started having these really sharp pains in my side. I didn't know where it was coming from, and I'd had those for a couple of weeks, but I just assumed it was just it's just gas or whatever. You just
Yeah.
brush it off, or maybe I just pulled a muscle or something, and it came and it went. Well, it came back again, and this time it came with nausea, and I was feeling feverish, and I'm like, maybe I have COVID. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know what all the symptoms were.
Yeah.
So I got to Florida. I did my gig there, and I told them, I said, take me back to my hotel, like now, right? As soon as I was done, I said, can you guys take me right to my hotel? I don't feel well, and I didn't want to alarm anybody.
Yeah.
So I got back to my hotel, and I called my best friend, and I said, I think I'm dying. She said, what? I said, I feel like I'm dying. Something doesn't feel right. I said, I feel very nauseous and feel feverish. I feel very weak. I feel like I'm going to collapse. I think I'm dying. I don't know what's wrong. And she says, we talked about it. So I said, Lord, just help me get home. Let me just get home. I got back to Vegas, and one of my friends picked me up from the airport. I said, take me right to the ER. I feel like crap. I get to the ER, and they say, okay, so we're going to admit you. And I'm like, well, what's wrong? It says your liver enzymes are in the thousands. I was in acute liver failure and didn't know it.
Wow.
As a result of having gallstones. So you just that's what that sharp pain was. It was gallstones. And so there can be things going on in your body. And that was actually the first thing I said to him. I said, you know what? Check and see if I have gallstones. Because being a bariatric patient, that's something that's common with bariatric patients. But I didn't know what it felt like. I've had kidney stones before, but I'd never had a gallstone before.
Yeah.
And sure enough, that's what it was. And they admitted me. I was in the hospital for a week. Took me 2 months to recover. I missed our recording. And I was just, flat on my back looking crazy, not knowing what the future was going to hold, because they were telling me a bunch of crazy stuff. Oh, you may need to have a liver transplant. This could lead to cirrhosis of the liver. This could lead to this. I mean, just telling me all kind of crazy stuff,
Right.
But God.
Right.
But
And
when
I understand, how life can change. This year, 4th of July weekend, first Sunday, I get up like every other Sunday. At the time, I was minister of music for 4 churches here in Detroit. So I'm up and go to the bathroom. The last thing I remember was plugging in my trimmers, trim my beard up, trim my hair up, get ready for service. I did not feel myself black out and pass out. My family found me on the bathroom floor, uh, unresponsive. I was dying. EMS was called. By the time I got to the hospital, they checked my levels, and my glucose level, my blood sugar level, was 1800. I did not know.
Yikes.
I did not know I had diabetes. Prior to that, not feeling well, not feeling myself, but it was, like you said, wave it off, whatever. And I was in a diabetic coma for 3 days. I came out the diabetic coma, and the doctors kept referring to the accident. Do you remember your accident? And I was talking very slurred, like someone who had a stroke.
Right.
And they asked me what year was it. I said 1990. I didn't know who the president was. I couldn't spell my name.
Oh
I
goodness.
was messed up for real, for real. And 17 days I was on my back
Yikes.
in the hospital. And when I tell you that it was nothing but God that gave me one more chance.
Mhm.
Yes, I do have to take insulin twice a day. I have a bag full of medications. But every time that I've gone to the doctors, I'm told that my levels are regular.
Thank you,
I
Jesus.
have a meeting with the kidney doctor next month. I have a dialysis port currently in
Okay.
in my chest, but I know that that's going to be removed before the end of this year. And it really showed me. People talk this simple theme: life is short,
Mhm.
but you really don't know how short it is.
Absolutely.
For people like myself, like you, like your mom, who had gone through, that particular situation, that tunnel, and
Yep.
God has seen us out. This is the reason why when we talk, this is the reason why when we minister, it has the effect it has, because I'm not talking from a theory. I'm talking from, I know what it's like to be in a dead place. And doctors saying we've never seen somebody alive with a blood sugar count of over 1,000.
Wow.
They called me dead man walking for 17 days.
Wow.
And I had, to learn how to walk on a walker and and literally God restored me day by day. I got strength in my body. I got better, and it's nothing but him,
Sure.
so thank you for being, open about that, because,
Absolutely.
folks don't always talk about their health and everything like that, but
But we have to talk about it because we have
oh
to
yeah,
we have to stay mindful of these bodies because you need your body to function in your gift.
yes,
Gift ain't nothing without the body.
right,
And so if we're not taking care of these temples and if we're not taking care of these bodies, we're not drinking enough water, if we're not because that was the first thing they said, I was severely dehydrated.
yes,
And so just not, he's like, you're in the, he's like, where'd you move here from? So I just moved here 2 years ago. I was like, where'd you come from? I said, I came here from Chicago. He said, well, what's the temperature in Chicago right now? I said, probably about 80. He said, well, it's 117 here. See how drastic a change that is?
wow,
This is the desert. He said, you've got to drink water. You've
wow,
got to drink it because there's no water in the atmosphere.
yeah, yeah.
You're just, you're standing out here in this heat, living in this heat. You've got to drink a gallon of water every day, at least a gallon a day. So
And I know, I listen, I got my water, and I know because I loved Mountain Dew, Pepsi, all the snack stuff.
Mhm.
And then being a musician, and sometimes, the McDonald's, the Wendy's, and here in, Detroit,
Chicken strips and fries,
Coney
White
Island,
Castles, and
and it's like, what?
pizza.
Yes, and it's like,
Lots of
what?
pizza.
You got to make an adjustment,
Yeah,
and it's a wake up call.
sure.
It's a
Yeah.
wake up call. So with, you mentioned, missing the recording. You know, everybody, that I know, that singers, musicians, we admire the choir master himself, Mr. Ricky Dillard, and the singers and band of New G. One question that my son, he's a drummer, 20 years old, he asked me to ask, what is a rehearsal like
Wow.
in New G?
Long. The rehearsals are very long. But there it's just an awesome experience. It really is an awesome experience. Our assistant director, Larry Jones,
Hmm.
Dr. Jones conducts rehearsals a lot of the time. Dr. Dillard can be like on the way. Dr. Jones will get us started with prayer. That can last for however long because he's just he is so anointed and his is this just it is so necessary to get in a certain space before you just start teaching songs.
Yes.
That space has to be there. You have to be in the presence of God so that everything flows smoothly. Once we get in the presence of God, it's easy to sing his praises when you're in his presence.
Yeah.
So that's praise and prayer and praise and worship is mandatory for that to happen. Rehearsals leading up to an actual recording are a
Yeah.
little different. Now, first few rehearsals, okay, guys, let's try it. You sing a little bit. Oh, made a mistake. Let's try it again. Very peaceful. And then all the vets were looking at each other like, baby, look, in a few more weeks,
Yeah.
see how peaceful he's been right now. Ain't gonna be nothing like that.
Wow.
It's gonna be a completely different person 2 days before the recording. I know y'all know these parts. I taught them 1,000 times. What's wrong with y'all?
Wow.
Completely different person when it's time for the show because you can't have one thing that's frustrating is when the show is tomorrow and you all are in here acting like you don't know the music that we have to record in
Yes.
2 days. What are you talking about? You're supposed to know
Yes.
this.
Yes.
And so but it's a good time though. It's a good time. Dr. Dill is hilarious. He's very comedic and so he knows how to make it fun.
Yeah.
We're all singing music that we love.
Hmm.
And so it's our music, so we love it. We were fans before we joined the choir, and so even the new things we learn is stuff that Dr. Dillard has hand selected, uh, along with his circle that he consults with, and there's songs that they selected. So it's stuff that fits us, and it's just good music, and it's always fun singing good music. So we have a
And,
good time. It lasts about 4 or 5 hours, sometimes 6 hours, just depending.
okay.
Yeah.
And I know why my son asked that question because when you endeavor to go to different heights and different levels, especially being a creative, a lot of times before you get there, smart people will try to peak to kind of see how it is, because you want to. There's nothing that's really going to totally cushion you, but there
Sure.
could be some things you can already mentally start to get together so that
Absolutely.
hey, if I'm thinking hour and a half rehearsal is tough, like you just said, leading up to a recording where it's live, which is way different than if you're recording in studio. You could cut and paste and do that, but
Go back and fix things. Yeah.
yeah, it is what it
Overdub.
is. So to know that there's, no musicians doing what you do that 4, 5, 6 hours, you
Yeah,
know.
and that's for the choir. And then the band has their own separate rehearsals. So they will have been in rehearsals 3 or 4 hours prior to us getting there. Or they may have to stay after when we're done.
Yeah,
So there is no breaks. There's no rest for the weary when it comes to preparing for a session like that. And so
right,
you meet these guys now, a lot of these musicians, they want to rehearse for an hour and just go to the show. And I'm like, no. And then when
right,
you make mistakes, you want to kind of oopsie daisy and my bad, but then you want your full pay.
right.
No,
You want to fully
that's
prepare.
not fair.
Right, right. And see, and the thing is with I might be a little younger than you, but maybe by about 3 months, or so. I don't know. I think I'm older. I don't know. But when you're of our generation, we know what it is to be taught by seasoned veterans.
Sure,
And one of the main things that was around the board was discipline.
absolutely.
It wasn't, and I'm talking about the era with us, Church of God in Christ. We had the Saturday morning rehearsals.
Oh yeah.
You can make that hair appointment if you want to at 11
Mhm.
o'clock, thinking that 9 o'clock rehearsal will be done by then. We're done when you got your part.
Right.
So sopranos, if y'all playing around, altos, if y'all ain't on one accord, tenors, if y'all all over the place, we're not going to leave here today and come to church tomorrow singing a song and y'all sounding crazy.
Yeah.
But it was the discipline of know your stuff. And I tell young people and I tell, my son, like I said, who's a drummer, and a lot of other people, you practice at home. You perfect what you're presenting at rehearsal.
Exactly.
Don't come to rehearsal and you're going to ask me, as your minister of music, how does the first verse go? And you've had this music for a week, sometimes two.
Yeah.
No, no. You have plenty of time to go over your material. And I do a simple time management exercise. 24 hours in a day, 7 days a week, you have 168 hours that God blesses you with every week that you're alive. You can't take 30 minutes each day out of 24 hours to practice what you say you're gifted and purpose to do.
Right. That's crazy. I Twan Green will tell you that my head will twist all the way around several times, like I'm on The Exorcist, about not knowing my material. Because I send it to you in plenty of time for you to know everything on this list. And when I get to rehearsal and you haven't even listened to the list, that's insulting.
Yes.
That's insulting to me, having flown you in and prepared money for you, because I always pay. I'll pay if I don't get paid. I'm going to pay my band. And so the band is my priority. And
Mhm.
when I go above and beyond the call of duty to take care of the band and the band doesn't take care of me, I'm going to have a problem with you. I'm going to let you know how I feel about you.
Right.
And I still love you,
Right.
but I'm not happy with you right now because you don't know my material. And
Right.
there is no excuse for you not knowing my material.
Right.
There is no excuse. There is no explanation for you to give me about why you don't know it. Absolutely no excuse.
Right.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this: with all of the singing that you do, is
Hmm.
there any special regiment that you do as far as any vocal exercises that's just a habit, certain things that you eat, certain things you don't eat or drink? I know with interviewing B Slade, his thing was he eats whatever. He
Yeah.
said,
Me too.
it's very psychological. He said,
Absolutely.
if people already say, I can't hit that note, he said, well, guess what? You're going to fulfill what you just said.
Absolutely.
He said, so if I feel like eating a Snicker bar and drinking a Pepsi, I'm going to do that. And then I'm going to go on stage because I'm going to do what it is that I'm here to do.
B
Um,
Slade and I are a lot alike in that regard because I don't have any dietary restrictions that are, oh, I can't eat dairy, or I drink cold water. I
okay.
eat dairy. I
Hmm.
don't I don't have any issues with foods like
Hmm.
that hinder me from delivering vocally. And a
Okay.
lot of times it's just a lot of times people say that because they heard somebody else say it.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't do that dairy, honey, because it messes me up. How? How does it mess you up? What does it do to you? All that mucus. Okay, well, you need the mucus to keep your throat moist. So how is that a bad thing? Mucus helps us, especially gospel singers. It helps us to have that mucus.
Hmm.
So yeah, you don't want to be just completely dry and stripped back there. You need that. You need that
Right.
coating.
Right.
So that's a good thing. Mucus is
Right.
your friend.
Right.
Unless it's running out of your nose, then it's not your friend. But
Yeah.
yeah, having
Um,
that extra moisture back there helps. It helps to coat your vocals. So you definitely want that.
yeah.
But I don't have water and rest is my regimen. Your throat, your voice getting tongue tied, needs rest.
Hmm.
Those vocal cords is a muscle just like any other muscle. When you go in the gym and work out, you're going to be sore the next day.
Yeah.
And so you have to have arm day and then rest day.
Hmm.
Before, you can't just keep working your arms, or working your leg. You have to rest that.
Right.
You can't just keep running and standing on your feet. Eventually, you have to rest your feet and massage it and get that circulation going again.
Right.
You get a bruise
Right.
and you get that scarring, and you get the same thing back here. You feel raw and irritated back there.
Hmm.
You've been screaming and hollering in these raggedy mics with no monitors, horrible sound systems.
Radio Shack mics,
But
but folks expect you to sound like
Radio
you're at Madison Square.
Shack,
They, they got the Radio Shack 8 mics for $20,
I can't deal with it.
but then they want to know why you don't sound like you're at Madison Square Garden.
Right, crazy.
Sir, these mics sound like you got 15 paper bags over the like what? Yeah, yeah.
Crazy. And that's what I tell pastors, you really have to invest in sound equipment.
Yes.
If you're going to start a church, and I'm going to start a church here someday, and that's one of the main things. I'm not starting no church with no raggedy sound system, and we just long as we in there. No, doc, ain't no just long as we in there. We're going to give God excellence.
Right. Praise him anyhow, saints. No.
No, we no.
No.
Mm-mm.
No. If you sounded like you talking out of a paper bag, something
Exactly.
is wrong. Because in order for the people to be blessed, they need to hear.
Absolutely.
So if they can't hear you properly, how are you blessing them?
How are you blessing them? And then you're damaging your own voice and messing up your own instrument, singing in these things. So
Right.
it's hard. It's hard to get people to understand that because they just want to do what's cheapest. What's cheapest is not always what's best.
Right.
And you have to do what it takes. You don't just do what you can, you do what it takes.
Right. Right.
Invest. Invest in good keyboards. Invest in good drums. Invest in good cymbals.
Yes.
I want your cymbals cracking every Sunday. Well, they were only $35. That's why they're cracking.
For a whole 10-pack.
A 10-pack of cymbals is
$30. But you know what gets and
they're made out of paper mache.
Yeah. And being a musician, I've seen where the music ministry gets like the just whatever thought. Yeah. But when it comes to you running a revival and you're inviting these preachers in, you'll make sure it's quality pertaining to them.
Sure.
But to the musicians, to the singers, the ones who's actually there with you week in and week out, we're not going to put duct tape on the mic cord because you hear distortion. Yeah. We're not going to do that, sir.
We're not doing that.
We're not going to. That's not.
I'm not going to invite a preacher. I'm not going to pay $1,500 to fly a preacher in first class for them to preach to some raggedy drums or raggedy keyboard. That's dumb.
A keyboard that you don't even have a power cord. You put D batteries in the key, sir. We're not going to do this. We're
Is
not.
This a Casio?
Right.
Do you have a Casio, sir?
Sir, we're not going to.
Can't. I don't want to have church that bad that we got to just throw it together.
Jesus will not be pleased.
God is not, and he's not so hard up for churches and hard up for pastors that we just got to throw stuff together and sham our way through it. Right. He has time for you to give him excellence. He really does. He really has time for you to give him excellence. So we just throw anything together and say, well, the Lord told me to start a church. Yeah. And the Lord is not crazy. He's not crazy.
It'll actually make him smile. If you think enough of him to say, you know what, God, not just give you my best, give you the best.
The best. Absolutely.
Some of them other, co-laborers of mine, this is what's considered to be the standard in gospel. We have good sound, the people can hear, we're going to give the funeral home back their fans, and have central air. Yes. Praise the Lord. Yes.
Hilarious.
So Lillian, I'm going to pause right here because I know you're busy. I know what you got going on, and I thank you. We're going to have to do a part 2 to this at a later time. Maybe once you're done, or if you know when you're coming to Detroit, we can do something live.
I'm actually going to be in Detroit on Sunday, October 16th. I will be with Larry Whitfield. I'm doing an interview with Larry Whitfield for his Sunday throwbacks. Faris G and Jeremiah is doing their CD release, and I did the single on his project, and it's called Breakthrough. And so I'm featured on that project, and so we're going to do an interview with him on Sunday, and then we're going to go over to Craig Memorial for Antonio Clark's New Mercy reunion. So that's gonna be good. It's gonna be good. So I'm looking forward to that. And then I will be in Inkster on Wednesday and Thursday for Pastor Nina Nero preaching there. And then Sunday morning, the 23rd, October 23rd, I'll be with my cousin, Bishop Eric Lloyd, at Rhema International for our Family and Friends Day. And that is 12 noon. And then the concert is that Sunday night, at New Mount Vernon.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'll be in Detroit from the 16th through the 24th.
Okay. Well,
Yep.
Detroit, you heard it. She's coming
Yep.
home.
Yep.
And listen, all those dates that she done threw out there, catch her, because we know we're
Yes.
gonna be blessed. Listen, you have a wonderful rest of your evening.
Absolutely. You too. Thank you for
Enjoy
having me on.
the rest of this week. Not a problem. Like I said, we'll do part two
Sure.
and get down to more of the stuff and talk even ministry wise,
Sure.
because I know being a singer and being a preacher,
Mm-hmm.
we know how that can blend. If it's treated properly. And we've seen where it hasn't been treated properly and it hasn't blended.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, we're going to talk about that. But
Amen.
listen, continue to do what you're doing, being a great example,
Thank
being an
you.
encouragement to so many people, and you just have a wonderful evening.
You too. Thank you so much.
All right, bye-bye. We'll see
God
you
bless.
later.
Okay.
All right.